Welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame. I'm the always good-looking and witty Jeff Driscoll.
And I'm Jim Kerr.
All right.
I don't know what I am.
Yeah.
Just
Jim,
a guy.
let's get right on to it here. Let's talk about Ales Hemsky. Ales Hemsky's pulled out, sounds like, the NHL All-Star game, which is happening next weekend. Sounds like he's been playing with a concussion for a couple of days at least here. It was a big deal when people found out that Crosby was playing with a concussion. Hemsky's certainly not getting reported as much as Crosby is. So are concussions that hard to diagnose, you think? Or are we seeing an irresponsibility on the part of the team's medical staff? What do you think there?
Well, it makes you wonder a little bit because there are tests that they do to try and figure out if these guys have the head injuries that we're talking about here. But I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that it could fly a bit under the radar if it's a buildup of. But it's definitely kind of worrying, I would think, for the NHL to realize that two All-Stars, not just regular fourth-line players, two All-Stars have been playing potentially with a concussion, because that's kind of goes away from where they're trying to head. Just football as well. They're trying to reduce concussions, finding out that guys have been or are playing with concussions because they're not catching them fast enough. That might be something they'll want to look into.
I read a really interesting article, Jim, that was talking about it's also the mentality of the players to play through everything, and whether or not they're reporting their concussion-like symptoms to the doctors. I mean, the doctors can't make the diagnosis if the players are not really reporting anything. What do you think about that?
Well, that's it too. I mean, it has to be a big shift in the mentality for these guys, because here are guys that in pro sports up until maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago, playing through was a real true sign of a champion almost. And I've heard stories too about guys lying their way through the concussion test just to get back in, and you think, oh well, that's dumb.
Yeah,
but a year ago, it's, oh man, what a competitor. Geez, they just don't make them like that anymore. Yeah. Every season in the playoffs, there's somebody who plays through some kind of horrible injury, whether it's Steve Yzerman with no knees or something like that, and you go, man, that guy, he's just a cut above the rest, But maybe it's time we rethink that mentality.
Totally. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great idea to talk to kids like that. We maybe shouldn't have the kids trying to play through stuff when, the possibility of getting more hurt, it's a
concussions especially.
Oh, concussions especially.
Yeah.
Not only is Hemsky out of the Oilers lineup, Jim, but he becomes the latest player who's not going to be in the NHL All-Star game, or at least his status is up in the air. He joins people like, Eberle's not going to be there. Now they're reporting that Sidney Crosby more than likely won't be there, as well as Malkin's on the mend there as well. Jerome McGinley pulled out for personal reasons. What's going on there? I mean, is it just, again, one of these things where the All-Star game just isn't as important to the players as it is to the fans or to the NHL?
Well, there were also some players too who had their teams apparently tell the league not to pick them. I believe Henrik Zetterberg and a couple of Philadelphia Flyers were on that list as well. So, I mean, let's be honest, it's not that important of a game.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything, and it's kind of a joke, but there's still enough star power that it will be a good game. I mean, the NHL is so deep with talent that picking, even if it's not the true to form top 30 or 40 or whatever it is, it's still going to be good for the fans.
And I mean, it's too bad for Ales Hemsky, because this was the first time he was an All-Star, which I couldn't believe that. I can't believe that he hadn't been there before.
I was a bit surprised by that too, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, you think of all the Oilers teams over the past 8 years, and basically he's the guy, But a couple of Horkoffs and a couple of Surreys in there. I guess that's the way it works.
Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, one of the other big stories, and I really enjoy this one, was the LA Kings general manager, Dean Lombardi, was fined $50,000 last week for some comments he made about the league vice president, Mike Murphy. Yeah, that's a good idea, Lombardi. Go after the league vice president. That's going to work out for you. So, I mean, there were two controversial plays that week. The latest one is Phoenix's Martin Hansel knocked a puck out of the air with a high stick, put it into the net. It went upstairs for review and then came back as that it was a good goal. Lombardi says that he thinks that Murphy gave the goal to the Coyotes because he wants the Kings GM job when it was up for grabs. And he was bitter that he didn't get it. First of all, Jim, I mean, the goal was not a goal. It was way above. Hansel's 6'6". Are you kidding me? It was way above.
And they tried to say they didn't have a conclusive camera angle. Well, it wasn't like the goalie's glove was blocking the camera and was it over the goal line. There was a guy standing at the top of the crease. I don't know how they didn't have a definitive camera angle, but I mean sometimes that's just how it goes, I guess. But those comments by Lombardi, oof.
Crazy. Good for him, though.
And, it's possible that had something to do with it. We're all human beings, right?
Exactly. And I mean, one of the stories that isn't being reported as much, but is a big deal, is that, I mean, the NHL owns the Phoenix Coyotes, right? I mean, there should be something there, a third party looking at goals for instead of the NHL. The NHL owns them. They want them to do well, right?
Well, Colin Campbell's son plays in the NHL, and when it involves his son, he, steps back and lets someone else take care of it. Totally. This is almost like, it's kind of funny to joke about, but this is actually almost, maybe a legitimate thing.
Yeah, no, you're right, man. You're absolutely right. Moving on, Lance Armstrong is in the middle of another round of allegations that he doped during his incredibly successful cycling career. Floyd Landis, who, is an admitted liar, he gave Sports Illustrated some more material this week about Armstrong saying that Armstrong used hard-to-detect blood-boosting drugs and was caught at the airport with drugs and syringes, but the team talked their way through. I mean, if this is coming from Landis, do we believe this stuff, Jim? Do we not? And if in fact he cheated to win, should he strip from his titles like the others who've been caught?
Well, starting with Landis, obviously you take everything he says with maybe a pound of salt.
Yeah, you have to.
And but at the same time, you have to do your due diligence and investigate, and they are. So I don't know really how you investigate this type of thing, and maybe try and get in touch with other people involved. I'm not really sure, but they're doing the right thing, I suppose, by investigating. Armstrong welcomes the investigation, he says, but that's because he's not caught yet.
Yeah, that's right.
but it's strange. And as for those titles, I mean, I guess if other people have been stripped because of similar allegations, that's what you got to do. But then you got to think, too, does cycling as a whole want that?
Yeah, that's big time. Big time.
Because, I mean, you got to think at some point, with the more and more, titles stripped and allegations and this and that, at some point, the sport
it's just going to be a joke.
Has to take a look at itself and say, why does everybody who is successful in our sport have a history of cheating?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I'm clinging to the hope that he didn't the drugs. I mean, I just want one athlete to believe in, Jim.
I know. Isn't that sad?
Somebody to actually go and win on their own merits, That's what I want.
Isn't it sad that at this point in sports, somebody comes out of nowhere and does really well for a season, and the first thing out of anybody's mouth is, what's he on?
Yep.
And they're serious?
Man.
Hockey's the only one that's not like that right now, but
that's true.
Their time will come, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to move on to the GABBYs now. The GABBYs are the good and bad by you. We take the best and the worst stories in the world of sport from you guys, and we put them into a list, and we tell you what the goods and the bads are. So for the first one on the good here, Jim, Buffalo's Nathan Gerbe scores 2 goals in 5 seconds on last Friday night. 1 second off the NHL record scored by Nels Stewart in 1931.
He was a hell of a player, that Stewart.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, in his day, he was the man.
Yeah. Some real battles back in them days.
Since it came in a 5-2 loss to the Islanders, though, Gerbe says it was embarrassing. Crazy stat about Gerbe, he's the league's shortest player at a Theron Fleury size 5'5".
Yeah, I had to laugh when I saw the rest of his team come over to celebrate with him when Tyler Myers, who is 6'8", comes over and gives him a little pat on the head.
Yeah, I like
oh
that.
my God.
Yeah, good for him, though.
I don't know if there's any other teams like that.
Yeah.
You got the second tallest and the first shortest.
Absolutely.
Vernon Wells dealt to the LA Angels this week. This is a good, I think, because maybe it shows an actual rebuild for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Absolutely.
And it seems like a tough move for them because Wells is kind of a cornerstone. But, now they've gotten rid of Wells. They've gotten rid of Alex Rios.
Yep.
Boy Halliday's gone.
Yep.
And they get rid of a contract that was worth $126 million and still had 4 years left.
Yeah, that was a brutal contract, Jim, to begin with.
Yeah, I was looking at his numbers the year before they gave it to him. Those nothing fancy.
I mean, they were fine, but yeah, you're right. They're nothing fancy. I mean, this has got to be a tip of the hat to the Blue Jays fans. Look, guys, we're going to rebuild, and I wish they'd come out and say it. Why not? You've got rid of one of the best pitchers in all of the MLB right now. You're getting rid of Vernon Wells. Okay, you know what? That's enough.
That said, though, they have to actually do it now.
Yeah, that's right.
They can't just say, well, look what we've done.
Yeah,
they actually have to start, and they have to make some moves to show the fans and the team that something's going to change.
Agreed. On the good side as well, this week was the return of Saku Koivu to the Montreal for the first time since he left the team for the Anaheim Ducks. The former captain and Habs' first-round draft pick got a standing O from the crowd at the Centre Bell. Good for him. He's one of the good guys in the game, he's done a lot for Quebec as a whole. He got some PET scanners and some CT scanners when he was going through the cancer thing. So good for him.
Absolutely. It was good to see him not get an unwelcome response from the fans, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
On the bad side of things, the Ottawa Senators, Jeff.
Yeah.
Coming into this weekend, the Sens have just one win since Boxing Day, which is also when they lost Jason Spezza.
Yep.
They got into a brawl with the Flyers after near the end of a 6-2 loss this week. The next night, back to the home crowd. Do you think they were, amped up from the night before? No. 7-1 they lost to the Montreal Canadiens. What's worse, though, the team's losing skid or goalie Mike Brodeur's ugly pads?
Yeah, the losing skid is ugly, and I'm talking like crazy ugly. Like Steve Buscemi ugly. But those Mike Brodeur's pads have got to take the cake. Those things are absolutely ugly,
that
Jim.
blocker, what? Black with white polka dots?
I don't know what that
I mean,
is.
I know it's not a fashion show, but come on, man.
The National Lacrosse League's Boston Blazers drew some of the wrong type of attention recently for a halftime promotion during a win over our Edmonton Rush. They picked a few ladies in the crowd to have a lap dance contest with the team's mascot Scorch sitting on a chair in the middle of the field. The team apologized after the fact, Jim, but what says family entertainment but a lap dance?
Well, I mean, I'm speechless. I heard about that and thought, no. The team says, that it wasn't executed like they presented it to us at first. So
nice.
What, they couldn't, they forgot to bring in the stripper pole?
Yeah, exactly.
Another on the bad side, another woman coming out with allegations against Brett Favre and other Minnesota Vikings players. She says she came out because she thought the NHL wasn't harsh enough on Favre for the Jen Sturger stuff. How much more of this do we have to put up with, Jeff?
We're going to put up as much of it as the media gives attention to it, Jim. So, we'll see how it goes.
Someone should take that guy's cell phone away.
Yeah, no kidding. Real quick hits. We've got about 45 seconds here. Jim, Peter Forsberg practices with the Colorado Avalanche. Is he coming back to the NHL?
I'd like to see him leave on his own terms instead of leave due to injury, but I don't know.
Yevgeny Nabokov was signed by the Detroit Red Wings, and then he had to come through waivers because he started the season in the KHL, and the New York Islanders, surprise, surprise, picked him up, and he sounds like he's not going to report to the team. What do you think about that, Jim?
Would you report to the New York Islanders?
Good point. Our last quick hit, a reminder that Jim and I are going to be hosting a sports hot stove, or as my brother likes to call it, a crock pot, at the Edmonton West End Beer Hunter Pub on April 2nd. We'll have some sports journalists from around the city come by. as well as some local athletes to say hi. If you can't make it down to the pub, remember we are going to be streaming it live on anysport.anytime.ca. Looking forward to that, Jim?
Absolutely. Can't wait.
This is our 15 Minutes of Fame. We're up for this week. Join us again next week when we have a whole new 15 Minutes of Fame. In the meantime, I am Jeffrey Driscoll.
I'm Jim Kerr.
Have a good week, guys.